There was also this moment when the president went after Senator Elizabeth Warren.
Pocahontas. They always want me to apologize for saying it. Let's say I'm debating Pocahontas, right? I promise you I'll do this. I will take, those little kits they sell on television for $2? Learn your heritage. We will take that little kit and say, but we have to do it gently. Because we're in the MeToo generation, so we have to be very gentle. And we will very gently take that kit and we will slowly toss it, hoping it doesn't hit her and injure her arm.
The president then said he'd give $1 million to Warren's favorite charity if the DNA test proved she was, quote, Indian. Well, Senator Warren responding on Twitter, hey, Donald Trump, while you obsess over my genes, your administration is conducting DNA tests on little kids because you ripped them from their mamas and you are too incompetent to reunite them in time to meet a court order. Maybe you should focus on fixing the lives you're destroying. Neither one of them mincing words there. Joining me now, Ron Brownstein, CNN senior political analyst, and Amy Parnes, CNN political analyst. Neither one is known for mincing words either, we should point out there. As we look at all of this, and if we just start with those Me Too comments, what's remarkable is that the president is honestly showing he still doesn't understand what the Me Too movement is about. Joking about DNA tests when legitimately they are being used to figure out who children are that have been separated under his own policies from their parents at the border. Also, these calls for proof, talking about Pocahontas again. It's impossible to miss the racist, nativist undertones there. But Amy, none of this is new, as we said, and it's not really surprising. The question is, does it still work in 2018?
No, I mean, one thing I think that's noteworthy is that he's focusing on Elizabeth Warren. So I think it shows that he's worried about maybe opposing her in 2020. I think it's the 2020 race has actually begun. It started earlier. I know no one wants to talk about 2020 yet because 2018 is still right around the corner, but it really has, and it shows that he is kind of worried about her. It shows also that he's worried about the left and what's happening on the left and the movement there. And so I think that's why he's singling her out, and he singled out Kamala Harris the other day on Twitter, or the White House did. So it shows kind of who they're looking to oppose, I think, in 2020.
It is, though, Ron. I mean, it's red meat, both to his base and to anybody who opposes the president, right? So, yes, we've seen it play out before. The big question is what comes next? Michelle Obama famously saying when they go low, we go high. Going high doesn't work. Going low against this president doesn't work. So what are we left with?
Well, look, I mean, I think we're along, it always amazes me that people say, well, why can't President Trump stay on message? Why can't he tout the economy or the administration agenda? Why does he constantly pick these personal cultural fights, many of them racially themed with racial coding and signaling? And the reason is because that is the message. This is not a bug. This is a feature. He believes it is in his interest to be in a constant succession of conflicts, many of them, as I said, racially themed, because he believes it signals to his voters that he will fight for them against all the forces they believe are arrayed against them. And when you talk about Me Too, by the way, if you look at Trump voters, including the large number of blue-collar white women who voted for Trump, they tend to be more resistant to kind of the changing gender roles in our society. The problem for the president is this is not cost-free. There was an incredible Erica poll result this week. You may have seen when Quinnipiac University asked, and probably the most stark possible phrasing you can use, is President Trump racist? Is he racist? And 49% of Americans, a plurality, said yes, including about 80% of African Americans and almost 60% of millennials and half of college-educated whites. So on the one hand, he believes this is stoking his base, and in fact, it may be doing that for aspect of his base. But there is a real cost, and it will most likely be paid by the Republicans in white-collar suburban districts who are at the epicenter of vulnerability for the GOP in November.
Let me just pick up on that point, though. The cost that could be paid, is that enough of a cost that you actually see it impacting what we hear and see from this president? No. And he has made very clear, I think there have been other presidents who have been credibly accused of slighting the voters outside of their base, of kind of ignoring the interests of the parts of America or slighting them that did not vote for them. President Trump goes a big step further than that, I believe, into waters that we have never seen before, where he views the parts, the groups and the regions that did not vote for him, in effect, as a foil, as a target, as someone to attack, as a way of mobilizing and consolidating his base.
base. I often joke that he's so popular among Republicans because he's a wartime president. But the war is, in his mind, aimed at blue America, both in policy and rhetoric. So I think you continue to see him doubling down. He believes that the way forward in 2018 is to reverse the usual decline in turnout from the president's party. Certainly the way forward in 2020 is to mobilize more of his base. There has been so little about this presidency, if anything, both rhetorically and in policy, that is aimed at voters who did not support him the first time. In fact, as I said, he is more likely to view them as a foil, as a target, and a way to kind of consolidate the places where he is strongest: older, blue-collar, evangelical, non-urban voters. And that is the pattern, and I do not see anything deviating from it between now and 2020.
The other thing that's interesting in this pattern, and we heard a little bit of it, once again calling up John McCain and his vote, but also going after the 1,000 points of light from President George H.W. Bush. I do want to point out George W. Bush's former press secretary, Ari Fleischer, tweeting, "This is so uncalled for, going after a 94-year-old former president's promotion of volunteerism. I don't mind POTUS being a fighter. I do mind him being rude." Amy, even that coming from Ari Fleischer, though, we've seen that when more established Republicans, as we know, if they do not fall in line with this president, and even see Mark Sanford for most recent example, it bites them.
Yeah, and that's true. But I do think that it is actually affecting a lot of Republicans. There are some Republicans that I've heard from even in recent days saying, what is he doing? He's attacking the former president. He's doing these things with separating families. These are things that are not helpful to them going into 2018. And so he's actually doing things, even talking about the MeToo movement. He hasn't really talked about that at all since this movement has come up, because he knows that it affects him and what he's done and his indiscretions. So I think these are all things that actually do affect the Republican Party and what they stand for. And you're hearing little rumblings from Republicans saying none of this is helpful going into 2018. So even though this is a dog whistle, I think that's how some feel.
Be interesting to see if more say it publicly. Amy Parnes, Ron Brownstein, always appreciate the conversation. Thank you.